I need to tell you about something that happened to me when I was 16 years old in Australia. This is one of those stories I've only shared with a handful of people over the years, because honestly, even now at 30, I'm not entirely sure what I experienced that night. But what I do know is that it changed something fundamental in me, and the fear from that moment has never completely gone away. When I was 16, I was in my first real relationship with someone who lived pretty close to my house. He was my friend's older brother, and their place was maybe a 10-minute walk from mine if you took the shortcut. Now, this shortcut wasn't your typical neighborhood path. It cut straight through a stretch of dense Australian bushland along what was barely even a dirt road. My house sat directly across from where this track started, so I'd used it plenty of times before, usually during daylight and almost never alone. One night, I went over to his place to watch a movie, and we both ended up falling asleep on the couch. When we woke up, it was almost 11 at night. His mom had this really strict no sleepover policy, especially when it came to partners, so there was no question about me staying. He walked me to the front door, said goodbye, and that was it. Looking back now as an adult, I genuinely think he should have walked me home. I was only 16, it was late, and I had to walk through isolated bushland to get back. At the time though, I didn't think much of it. I started walking down the street toward the entrance to the bush track. Going the long way around through the suburban streets would have taken over 20 minutes, while the shortcut only took about 10. I'd done it before, so why not now? It was a beautiful night, actually. Late September in Australia, so it was spring, and there was this unusually bright moon in the sky. I remember thinking it was one of the most stunning moons I'd ever seen. The moonlight filtered down through the trees, so the path wasn't completely dark, which made me feel better about not tripping over roots or rocks. There was a steady breeze moving through the leaves, creating this constant rustling sound that was actually quite peaceful. I was just over halfway down the dirt road when something changed. The breeze was still blowing through the trees. I could see the branches swaying. But somehow, everything had gone completely, utterly silent. No insect sounds. No distant cars. No rustling leaves even though they were clearly moving. It was like someone had pressed mute on the entire world. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat. I felt uneasy immediately, but I kept walking forward. What else was I supposed to do? I was already halfway through. Then, without warning, this absolutely crushing feeling of dread hit me so hard in my gut that I physically stopped moving. I just stood there on that dirt path, frozen, staring straight ahead. My breathing got heavier. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me that something was wrong. A sharp chill ran straight up my spine, and even though my brain was telling me not to, even though every rational thought was saying just keep walking forward, my body made the decision for me. I slowly turned my head to look behind me. Standing there, just meters away on the path, was this tall, thin, dark figure. It wasn't a shadow. Shadows don't have that kind of presence, that kind of weight to them. This thing had shape and form, and the only features I could make out clearly were its eyes. They were glowing. Not reflecting the moonlight, but actually glowing. And they were locked directly onto me. My entire body went into complete fight-or-flight mode instantly. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just turned and ran. I sprinted down that dirt road faster than I've ever run in my entire life, before or since. I wasn't thinking about anything except getting to my street, getting to somewhere visible, somewhere with lights and people and safety. I don't even remember my feet hitting the ground. It genuinely felt like I was flying. When I reached my street, I didn't slow down. I ran straight to my back fence, jumped it without even breaking stride, rushed to my bedroom window, slid it open, and literally dove inside. That was the first moment I stopped moving since I'd started running. I turned around to look back through the window, breathing so hard I thought my chest would explode. There was nothing in the backyard. Nothing on the street visible through the gap. But I could still feel it. That horrible, crawling sensation of being watched, Like when someone stares at you from across a room and you can just sense their eyes on you. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those glowing eyes. I only finally drifted off when the sky started turning light and I could hear morning birds. I thought that would be the end of it. That it was just a terrifying experience I'd process and move on from. I was wrong. The bedroom I was sleeping in had originally belonged to my older sister before she moved to a different room in the house. What I didn't know at the time was that the window in that room had been damaged. My sister used to sneak out at night, and she'd broken the latch mechanism so it could be opened from the outside. That's actually how I'd gotten in so quickly that night, by sliding it open from outside. A few nights later, I was sound asleep when I suddenly jolted awake. I didn't know why at first. Then I felt it again, that same shift in the energy of the room, that same presence. My window was slightly open. I knew, absolutely knew, that I had shut it before bed. I'd been so shaken from that night in the bush that I'd been obsessive about checking it. I got up very slowly and walked over to the window. I pushed it closed without even looking outside. I didn't want to see what might be out there. I just wanted it shut. After that, the nightmares started. I would dream, night after night, that my window was sliding open while I slept and that something was trying to climb inside. The dreams were so vivid, so consistent, that I started to dread going to sleep. I could only get proper rest during the day when the sun was up. After about 2 weeks of this, I was desperate enough to come up with a plan. If the window could slide open from outside, I'd make it physically impossible for that to happen. I found a piece of wood that was the right size and wedged it into the window track so the window couldn't move at all. I had my brother test it from outside. It wouldn't budge even a centimeter. Years later, I told this story to my best friend and his partner, who is Aboriginal Australian. When I described the figure I'd seen that night, the expression that crossed his face genuinely scared me more than anything else about this story. He told me he believed I might have encountered something called a Mokoi. According to some Yolngu beliefs from Arnhem Land, a Mokoi is a malevolent spirit associated with death, illness, and misfortune. They're said to lurk in dense bushland, especially at night. They're described as stealthy, incredibly fast, and usually invisible. He told me it was actually unusual that I'd seen it at all. Most people just sense them. Then he said something that stayed with me ever since. He said that the darkness connected to a Mokoi can follow a person long after an encounter with one, if they manage to escape. The way he emphasized the word "if" made my stomach drop. I'm 30 years old now. I live an hour away from my hometown with my partner and our 2 dogs. I haven't walked through that bushland since that night. Not alone, not with friends, not even in broad daylight. I didn't want to tempt anything. But every now and then, even now, I still have that nightmare. I'm back in that bedroom from my teenage years. It's dark. The window starts to slide open, and I hear that soft thud of wood against the frame as something tries to force its way inside. Sometimes when I'm alone in my current home and it's dark, I feel that same shift in the air, that same heavy, watchful presence settling around me. I don't know if it's just my brain replaying an old trauma, keeping that fear alive after all these years. Or if something from that night in the Australian bush really is still trying to find a way in. Either way, I make very sure all my windows are locked at night. And I never, ever walk through wooded areas alone after dark.